The first voice you hear in the morning will be the loudest voice in your life. And if it isn't intentional, it will be accidental and expensive. Good morning, not to your body, but to your future. Because the moment you wake up is not neutral. It's a battlefield. And every single morning, something is fighting for control of your life. Your alarm clock goes off, and your destiny is waiting to see who shows up. The disciplined version of you or the excuse-making version of you. Let me tell you something real. Your life does not change when you want it to. Your life changes when your habits do. And the most powerful habit you can build in 2026 is what you listen to every morning. Because before the world talks to you, before fear talks to you, before doubt talks to you, you must talk to you. Most people don't lose because they're lazy. They lose because they're unprogrammed. They wake up and immediately listen to complaints, bad news, other people's opinions, yesterday's failures, and then they wonder why today feels heavy. That's not bad luck. That's bad input. See, excuses don't sound evil. They sound reasonable. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. It's just one day. But every excuse has a hidden price tag, and the currency is your future. Discipline is not about being extreme. It's about being intentional. You don't wait to feel motivated to brush your teeth. You don't wait for inspiration to eat. So why are you waiting for motivation to build your life? Consistency is louder than motivation. Consistency is quieter, less exciting, but it always wins. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your ears are the gateway to your destiny. What you listen to becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes what you do. What you do becomes what you have. That's why listening every morning is non-negotiable. Not when it's convenient, not when you feel like it, every morning, because discipline doesn't ask permission. Discipline makes a decision and sticks to it. 2020. 26 is not just a new year, it's a line in the sand. On one side is the old you, same habits, same excuses, same results. On the other side is a version of you who decided, no more excuses, no more negotiating with my comfort, no more delaying my destiny. So tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, don't hit snooze on your future. Press play, feed your mind, train your discipline, and show up like the person you say you want to become. Because the people who win in 2026 won't be the most talented. They'll be the most consistent. And consistency starts every morning. Morning is the battleground of destiny because nothing important is decided at the finish line of the day. Everything is decided at the beginning, long before the results show up, long before success or failure becomes visible. Destiny doesn't tap you on the shoulder at night when you're tired. It confronts you when you wake up. The moment your eyes open, a silent negotiation begins between who you've been and who you're capable of becoming. And most people don't lose that battle at noon or in the evening. They surrender it in the first few minutes of the morning. Morning is where discipline and comfort meet face to face. Comfort whispers, stay where you are. You can start later. Discipline responds, if you start later, you'll stay the same. Every morning asks you a question, and the answer is never spoken, it's demonstrated. Will you rise with intention, or will you drift into the day reacting to whatever comes? Reaction creates repetition. Intention creates direction. And direction, repeated daily, becomes destiny. What you do in the morning trains your nervous system to expect a certain type of life. If you wake up rushed, distracted, and unprepared, your mind learns chaos. If you wake up calm, focused, and intentional, your mind learns leadership. Morning habits don't just shape your schedule, they shape your identity. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you sink to the level of your morning routine. This is why the morning is so dangerous for people who live on excuses. Excuses feel strongest when the bed is warm and the vision feels far away. In the morning, excuses sound logical. They don't scream, they reason. You deserve rest. One day won't matter. You can do it later. But destiny doesn't respond to logic, it responds to consistency. And every time you choose comfort in the morning, you reinforce a future that looks exactly like your past. Morning is also where your mind is most open, most impressionable, most programmable. Before the world fills your head with noise, fear, and opinions, your mind is waiting for instructions. If you don't give it direction, it will accept distraction. If you don't choose the input, life will choose it for you. And whatever controls your mornings will eventually control your outcomes. Great lives are not built on intense moments. They're built on ordinary mornings done with uncommon discipline. The people who win aren't always more gifted. They're more governed. They don't let their feelings vote in the morning. They decide in advance who they are and how they move. They understand that motivation is unreliable, but structure is powerful. They show up even when the emotion isn't there because they know emotion follows motion. Morning is the battleground of destiny because it is the only time of day where you can win before the world tries to defeat you. When you win the morning, you carry momentum. When you lose the morning, you spend the rest of the day trying to recover. The smallest morning decisions compound into massive life results. One disciplined morning becomes a disciplined week. Disciplined weeks become disciplined years. And disciplined years create a life most people only talk about. Destiny is not a mystery, it's a pattern. And the pattern always starts in the morning. Excuses are just well-dressed lies because they don't show up looking dangerous, they show up looking reasonable. They sound polite, responsible, even intelligent. They don't tell you to quit, they tell you to wait. They don't tell you to fail, they tell you to delay. And that's why they are so powerful. A lie that looks ugly is easy to reject, but a lie that looks logical is easy to obey. Most people don't abandon their dreams in one dramatic moment. They slowly explain themselves out of them. An excuse is simply a story you tell yourself to avoid the discomfort of growth. It's the mind's way of protecting the ego from temporary pain at the cost of permanent progress. Excuses exist to keep you comfortable, not to make you successful. And the more intelligent you are, the more dangerous excuses become, because intelligence can dress a lie in facts, emotions, and justifications that sound convincing enough to stop movement. Excuses thrive in moments when action is required. They appear right before discipline, right before effort, right before change. They say things like, now isn't the right time, or once things settle down, I'll start, or I just need a little more information. But the truth is, the right time is rarely convenient, and clarity usually comes after commitment, not before it. Waiting for perfect conditions is the most socially acceptable way to stay stuck. The real cost of excuses is not what they take from today, but what they steal from tomorrow. Every excuse deposits nothing into your future but compounds regret. One excuse feels small, but patterns are never built from one decision. They are built from repetition. When excuses become habitual, they harden into identity. You don't just make excuses, you become someone who lives by them. And once that happens, opportunity can knock, but discipline won't answer. Excuses also lie by shifting responsibility. They make external factors the villain and circumstances the decision maker. They say it's the economy, the timing, the lack of support, the past, the workload, but excuses never mention the one variable that actually matters: choice. You may not control the situation, but you always control your response. The moment you surrender that responsibility, you hand your power away and call it realism. What makes excuses especially dangerous is that they don't feel like failure. They feel like self-care, patience, or wisdom. They allow you to feel good about doing nothing. But progress doesn't require you to feel good. It requires you to be honest. And honesty demands that you admit when fear is disguised as logic and comfort is pretending to be caution. Successful people aren't people without excuses. They're people who refuse to negotiate with them. They recognize excuses quickly and treat them like what they are: signals of resistance that must be overridden, not entertained. They act before excuse. Gain momentum. They understand that growth requires friction and that the discomfort they feel is not a warning sign, but a confirmation that they're moving in the right direction. At the end of the day, excuses don't ruin lives loudly. They ruin them quietly, politely, and over time. They promise protection but deliver limitation. And the truth is simple: every excuse you accept today becomes a reason you stay the same tomorrow. Consistency beats motivation because motivation is emotional and emotions are unstable. Motivation rises and falls with sleep, mood, results, and circumstances. Some days it shows up strong, other days it disappears completely. If your progress depends on how you feel, your results will always be unpredictable. Consistency, on the other hand, does not negotiate with emotions. It operates on decision, structure, and identity. It moves even when motivation is silent. Motivation is often mistaken for discipline, but they are not the same. Motivation is a reaction. Consistency is a system. Motivation responds to inspiration, excitement, or urgency. Consistency responds to commitment. That's why motivation can start something, but only consistency can finish it. The graveyard of potential is filled with motivated starters who never became consistent finishers. Consistency works because it compounds. Small actions repeated daily create momentum that no single burst of motivation can match. One intense day followed by 6 days of inconsistency produce. CES frustration. Moderate, disciplined days produce transformation. Progress is rarely dramatic in the moment, but it is undeniable over time. Consistency turns the ordinary into the extraordinary by refusing to stop. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. Consistent people act and let readiness catch up. They understand that clarity follows action, not the other way around. You don't become consistent after you see results. You see results because you stayed consistent. Momentum is built by showing up when there is no reward, no applause, and no visible progress. That's where consistency separates itself from motivation. Consistency also trains your identity. Every time you show up, you cast a vote for the type of person you are becoming. You don't need to win every vote. You just need to win most of them. Over time, those votes create self-trust. You stop relying on hype and start relying on habits. And once you trust yourself, execution becomes easier because you no longer question whether you'll follow through. Motivation loves novelty, consistency loves routine, motivation wants excitement, consistency wants standards. That's why motivation fades when things get boring, repetitive, or hard. Consistency thrives in those moments because it was never built on feeling, it was built on principle. The most successful people are not addicted to excitement, they are loyal to process. Consistency doesn't mean perfection, it means persistence. It means showing up even when the effort feels mediocre. It means continuing even when results are slow. It means understanding that missing once is an event, but missing twice is the beginning of a pattern. Consistent people don't quit because of imperfection. They adjust and continue. In the long run, consistency always outperforms motivation because it removes drama from progress. It makes growth boring, predictable, and inevitable. Motivation asks, do I feel like it today? Consistency asks, who did I decide to be? And that question, answered daily, determines everything. Your ear gate controls your life because nothing enters your mind without permission from your ears. Long before behavior changes, belief changes. And long before belief changes, input changes. What you repeatedly hear becomes what you repeatedly think. And what you repeatedly think becomes what you repeatedly do. This process happens quietly, without resistance, and often without awareness. That's why the voices you allow into your life matter more than the circumstances you're trying to overcome. Every day your ears are being fed something: conversations, music, news, opinions, complaints, predictions, and fears. None of it is neutral. Every sound carries an instruction. Some instructions build confidence, others install limitations. Some teach courage, others train hesitation. The danger is not that negative input exists, but that it is often consumed casually without intention until it becomes normal. Normal input creates normal results, and normal is where most dreams go to die. Your ear gate is powerful because repetition creates belief. You don't have to agree with a message for it to influence you. You only have to hear it often enough. Over time, familiarity becomes acceptance. That's how doubt sneaks in and how confidence can be rebuilt. If you constantly hear that things are hard, risky, unfair, or impossible, your mind eventually stops questioning it and starts operating as if it's true. And once your actions align with those beliefs, your life confirms them. This is why your mornings are so critical. In the early hours, your mind is most open, most impressionable, and least defended. Before the world starts making demands, your ears are waiting for direction. If you don't intentionally decide what enters at that time, you allow randomness to program you. Random input produces random results. Intentional input produces alignment, clarity, and momentum. What you listen to also determines your emotional baseline. Words shape mood, and mood influences behavior. Feed your ears discouragement, and your energy drops. Feed them possibility, and your energy rises. Most people try to change their actions without ever changing their audio environment. They try to force discipline while bathing their minds in distraction and negativity. That's like planting seeds in poison soil and wondering why nothing grows. Your ear gate also determines the voices you internalize. The voices you ear most often eventually become your inner voice. That's why criticism, even when external, can echo internally for years. And that's also why encouragement, when repeated, can rebuild a person from the inside out. You don't rise or fall to the level of your talent. You rise or fall to the level of the voices you believe. Guarding your ear gate is not about isolation. It's about selection. You don't need to avoid the world. You need to curate it. You need to decide which voices get access and which ones don't. Because access equals influence, and influence shapes direction. The life you are living now is, in many ways, the echo of what you've been listening to. When you take control of your ear gate, you take control of your trajectory. You begin to replace noise with instruction, distraction with alignment, and doubt with direction. And over time, your life shifts, not because of luck, but because you changed what you allowed to speak into you. Discipline is a decision, not a feeling. Because feelings are temporary and unreliable. They shift with sleep, stress, weather, results, and mood. If discipline required feeling motivated, inspired, or excited, very little would ever get done. Feelings were never designed to lead your life. They were designed to respond to it. Decisions, on the other hand, create structure, and structure is what carries you forward when emotions fade. Most people wait until they feel ready before they act. They confuse readiness with responsibility. But discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks who you decided to be. The moment you make a clear decision, behavior becomes simpler because the debate is over. You stop waking up asking, do I feel like doing this today? And start waking up knowing, this is what I do. That shift removes friction and eliminates daily negotiations with yourself. Feelings crave comfort. Discipline requires commitment. Comfort focuses on the present moment. Discipline focuses on the future outcome. That's why discipline often feels uncomfortable at first. It demands effort before reward, action before evidence, and faith before results. But discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that growth is happening. Every disciplined action stretches your capacity and strengthens your self-trust. Discipline also creates freedom, even though it feels restrictive at the beginning. When you decide in advance how you will live, you reduce the mental load of constant decision-making. You conserve energy by eliminating unnecessary choices. Over time, discipline turns chaos into clarity and effort into efficiency. What once felt hard becomes automatic because repetition trains the nervous system to expect consistency. The problem with relying on feelings is that they vote against discipline more often than they vote for it. Feelings say rest when effort is required. They say avoid when confrontation is necessary. They say delay when urgency matters. Discipline overrides that vote by honoring long-term values over short-term relief. It doesn't suppress emotion. It puts emotion in its proper place. Every act of discipline reinforces identity. When you do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it, you build credibility with yourself. Trust is not built through intention. It's built through follow-through. And once self-trust is established, confidence becomes stable instead of situational. You stop needing external motivation because your identity carries you forward. Discipline is not about intensity. It's about consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. Missing once is a mistake. Repeating the mistake is a decision. Disciplined people don't aim for flawless execution. They aim for forward movement. They adjust, recommit, and continue. In the end, discipline outlasts feelings because it is anchored in choice. Feelings come and go, but decisions remain. And the quality of your life will always reflect the quality of the decisions you make when you don't feel like making them. 2026 is not a year, it's a line in the sand. Because time itself doesn't change people. Decisions do. A new calendar doesn't create a new life unless it marks a clear break from old patterns. Too many people treat a new year like a fresh coat of paint, hoping it will cover habits they refuse to change. But growth doesn't respond to hope. It responds to commitment. A line in the sand is a moment of truth where excuses stop and responsibility begins. Crossing a line means something stays behind. You cannot step into a new season while dragging the same behaviors that produced the old results. The line demands clarity. On one side is familiarity, the same routines, the same explanations, the same compromise. On the other side is ownership, doing what needs to be done regardless of comfort, mood, or applause. The line doesn't move. You either cross it or you keep explaining why you haven't. Most people want change without separation. They want new outcomes without new standards. But transformation requires a decision so firm that retreat is no longer an option. A line in the sand is not drawn with emotion, it's drawn with resolve. It's the moment you stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start enforcing your values. From that moment forward, the question is no longer should I, but how will I? 2026 represents a demand for identity, not intention. Intentions are cheap because they don't require follow-through. Identity is expensive because it demands alignment. When you decide who you are becoming, your behavior must rise to meet that decision. That's why crossing the line feels uncomfortable. It exposes the gap between who you've been and who you've declared yourself to be. But discomfort is not failure, it's transition. A line in the sand also simplifies life. It removes confusion and eliminates endless self-debate. When standards are clear, decisions are easier. You don't wake up wondering whether to show up, stay disciplined, or stay focused. You already decided. Clarity replaces chaos, and momentum replaces hesitation. What once felt heavy becomes straightforward because the direction is no longer in question. The danger of not drawing a line is subtle. You don't collapse, you drift. Days blur together, potential stays unused, and years pass without intentional progress. The cost isn't immediate, which is why it's ignored. But eventually, time demands an accounting, and regret is always more expensive than discipline. 2026 stands as a dividing point between repetition and responsibility. On one side is the comfort of the familiar, on the other is the challenge of growth. Crossing the line doesn't guarantee ease, but it guarantees direction. And direction, consistently followed, always leads somewhere better than standing still. A line in the sand is not crossed once. It's honored daily. Every morning, every decision, every action either confirms that crossing or attempts to erase it. But once you decide that 2026 is the year you stop explaining and start executing, the past loses its grip. The future begins not because time changed, but because you did. So as you step into every morning from this day forward, remember this: your future is not waiting on a miracle. It's waiting on a decision. The battleground is the morning. The enemy is the excuse. The weapon is consistency. What you allow into your ears will shape what you believe, and what you believe will determine how you move. Discipline will not ask how you feel. It will ask who you decided to be. 2026 has already drawn the line in the sand. You don't cross it with words, promises, or motivation. You cross it with daily action, repeated without applause, sustained without emotion. No more negotiating with comfort. No more delaying what you already know you must do. Every morning, you press play, you show up, and you execute. Because the people who win in 2026 won't be the most gifted or the most lucky. They will be the ones who decided once and proved it every day.